His throne, my redemption. Previous episodes are available in playlist, a link is given in the video description. Episode 11. Just come here. Using the hand he held, he pulled her up and she fell against his chest. Let me hold you like you held me when I cried. His hands draped around her waist, holding her firmly when she tried to pull away. The sparks he'd longed to feel surrounded him immediately, gathering them both in comfortable warmth. Her struggle died against him, and she relaxed, soaking his chest in tears. In a soothing way, his hands caressed her back. He wanted her to feel better, to feel as safe as he did when she'd held him in her arms. It's okay, he cooed. You'll be fine soon. She sobbed, her nails digging into his sides as she held on to him too. They stayed like that even after she'd calmed down. It was as if they were both too scared to pull away from each other, as if this dream would end if they did. It was quiet between them, and though he wanted to, Jake wasn't the one who broke the silence. It was Delilah. If not to kill me, then why did you come? Her voice was croaky and low, so different from how it normally sounded. Jake pulled back to look at her, instantly perceiving the slight wetness that still resided on her puffy cheeks. He reached forward, using the back of his hand to dry each side. I felt anxious the night you left. I'd been wanting to go after you since then, but I knew it wouldn't be fair to you. However, when the mate bond started to act up, I couldn't hold back anymore. It was so painful, so I immediately thought you were in pain too. So that's why I came. She didn't respond, so Jake continued the conversation. Are you okay? Have you even eaten? I'm fine, as if you'd tell me if you weren't. He sighed, looking directly into those sad eyes as he asked. So what now? What next? Delilah shrugged. I don't know. Do you have anywhere you plan to go? No, I've been thinking about that ever since Giovanni banished me. I thought of running to Quinn, but I just know she'll do the same thing he did. I have no one else. My father is paralyzed, my mother's dead and my mate, she turned away from him. I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust you. Jake shifted on his knees, fingers twitching as he reached towards her face. With his index finger, he tilted her head towards him, so she faced him again. You can worry about that later, right now, your safety comes first. Come back with me, you'll be able to do whatever you want and to leave whenever you want. I know you might not believe me, but I swear on my life that even if the goddess herself told me to confiscate your freedom again, I wouldn't do it. You're right, I don't believe you. But even if I did return, wouldn't that make me look a lot more pathetic? Left at the first chance I got and now when I have nowhere else to go, I'll run back? That's pathetic, I'm pathetic. You're not pathetic and about not believing me, don't you think that if I wanted you back on my lands, I could have easily taken you? It's not hard for me to drag you back with me, Delilah, I've done it before. However, I don't want you to hate me any more than you do, I'm trying to accept the fact that I'm not in control of everything, including you. So I'm giving you a choice, you can come with me if you want to, or you can say no and I'll leave. It doesn't matter what I want, it's all about you right now. But what exactly do you want? I think that's obvious. I want you to come with me, I want the bond between us to have a future, I really want us to be together. That's not, don't think that's ever going to, please don't shatter my hope. He knew what she was going to say, his light was just about to burn him again. Tell me what's your next step from here, I'm anxious. Should I leave or will you come back with me? She shuffled back and away from him, and the act already disclosed her choice to him. This was hard. Would he even be able to leave if she told him to? Cold sweat lined out across his forehead, and his heart started to thump painfully hard in his chest. He told her to make a choice, and now he wasn't even sure if he wanted her to. He'd never been such a wuss in his entirely life. I think you should leave, think that's what's best for me. And his heart shattered, he could tangibly feel as it did. Piece by piece the puzzles fell, and he didn't think he'd be able to put them back together. Even with no one else to turn to, she refused to turn to him, and that hurts so bad. The fact that she hated him so much to accept his help, the fact that she couldn't even trust him, he was angry, angry at himself. Maybe if he begged, she'd change her mind, he was already on his knees anyway, and he practically had no pride when it came to her. Delilah, please, he pled. I'm begging you, you told me to make my choice, Jake. I did. Jake's eyes shifted away from hers, dead and free of the hope that had resided in them. Was she not tired of hurting him? No, that wasn't the right question. Was he not tired of hurting himself? Why had he even asked if he knew this was what she'd say? But still, he thought there was at least a 1% chance of her choosing him, but there wasn't even that. Standing to his feet, he turned his back to her, hopeless and lost, but still concerned about her, this woman who didn't give a talk about him. She wasn't the pathetic one here, it was him. If you still have nowhere to go, you're always welcomed back at my pack. I'm leaving now. His jaws clenched as he took the first step away from her. He had to force it because his body seemingly didn't want to move. He took another and then stopped when her hand grabbed onto his. I'll take the risk, she whispered out. Jake tilted his head back. What? What do you mean? What risk? She used her grip on his hand to pull herself to her feet. I mean, I'll give you a chance, you seem to be the only one who truly cares if I live or die anyway. She gripped his hand tighter, holding her head down. Thanks, Jake, thanks for not abandoning me even though I abandoned you. The pieces to Jake's heart instantly started to mend, and the organ started to thump again, but this time, it wasn't out of fear. He turned to face her completely, a feeling that was foreign along with a feeling of surprise slowly eating up the sadness that had been inside of him. Did he hear her right? Did you just say, you'd give me a chance? Yeah, but if it doesn't work out, I'll end us for good. His hand closed around hers and his lips spread into an uncontrollable smile. That foreign feeling running wild through him, he knew what it was now, it was undoubtedly him finally feeling a sense of happiness. Delilah, he called, and she lifted her head, her eyes finding his. What? You won't regret taking this risk, I promise. Jake pulled back up at his pack border in 3 nights with Delilah by his side. She'd still been weak from the rejection, and that made the journey longer. Her wolf was so small in comparison to his, so she was slower, slower and yet 100% more adorable. Her eyes looked the same, they made her seem fierce and yet, the rest of her was screaming harmless. He wanted to laugh, he couldn't even tell why he found it funny, but it was. The dark grey color of her wolf was pretty, it blended in well with the black of his. Just as he thought, they were a match made in heaven. Looking away from her, he crossed the borders, directing his attention towards Garth and the patrollers who greeted him as he changed forms. He was given a robe, which he threw at Delilah. "What happened while I was gone?" Garth cleared his throat, waiting until he passed to follow him. "Nothing much, Neil and the warriors has returned, he's in your office at the moment, waiting for you. You should wait there with him, after taking Delilah back, I have something to discuss with you." "Yes, Alpha." He swallowed as though he already knew what Jake wanted to talk about. "I'll be there when you arrive. Go there now, your company back to the cabin is not needed." "Right." He bowed, and then walked away with the patrollers, glancing at Delilah before doing so. Jake sighed, stopping in his tracks to wait for Delilah, who was still standing on the other side of his borders. "Aren't you going to come?" She huffed out a breath, and then he could hear her bones cracking as she changed into her human form. He turned to face her just as she wrapped the robe around her body. "I'm still trying to figure out," she paused. "If I'm making the right decision." "And are you?" "I'm not sure, but I already came this far anyway." She crossed the borders, a step that seemed rushed and anxious and yet reluctant. "Might as well I go further." Jake watched as she approached him. His heart didn't feel heavy anymore, it was as light as a feather, floating in his chest. Every step she took towards him enhanced its beat, and for some reason, he felt nervous. He knew one wrong move from him could mess all of this up. He didn't want to open his mouth and say the wrong words, he didn't want to take the initiative and make the wrong moves, but he also didn't want his cowardice to halter the progress of this relationship. If he wanted the bond to grow, he had to put his all into it, but exactly where would he start? He'd never done something like this before, but if nobody knew how to court a woman, Neil did. Since he's back, Jake could probably learn a few tips from him. Jake's attention jumped back to Delilah when she gasped, stumbling towards him after tripping over a fallen branch. He caught her before she fell, steadying her. "Are you okay?" She nodded, blood rushing to her cheeks as she stepped back and away from him, breaking the contact he'd been delighted to have. "Yeah, sorry." She walked around him, pointing in a random direction. "It's this way, isn't it?" "No, that's..." Jake grabbed her hand, stopping her. "It's actually this way." He jutted his chin in the correct direction. "I'll lead the way." He walked in front, not loosening his grip on her hand. There was something about the skinship between them, something magical. Every touch ignited an uncontrollable fire within him. With her, everything was just different. No other woman had drawn out this side of him, not even Beatrice. His whole demeanor changed when it came to her, he was softer, weak to her scent and her beauty. She could probably get him to do anything, what she did to him was what he once thought was impossible. He never believed in love, but right now, he knew for a fact that he was in love. His hand gripped hers tighter as he continued deeper into the woods until they made it to the cabin. He walked up the 3 wooden steps that led to the veranda, opening the door and leading her inside. Their steps echoed down the hall as he took her to the master bedroom. He stopped at the door, finally letting go of her hand, even though he did not want to. "So, we're here." Delilah clasped her hands behind her back, looking at the blank wall that resided behind him. She seemed just as nervous as him, the way her cheeks would redden every time their eyes met and the way she'd lick her lips before even attempting to open them. "We're here," she repeated. Yet, the awkwardness between them was standing so tall that Jake couldn't see past it. He got the chance he'd begged for, and he was barely making a thing out of it. If he had nothing to say to her now, what would he say to her tomorrow? No, he was going to see Neil. Neil would tell him what to say, what to do. Neil would be of great help, he was sure. "You can go in, I'm going to get dressed and leave for a moment. I'll, however, send an Omega back with some food. Please eat and get some rest. After the journey, you must be tired." Okay, even though that was obviously the end of the conversation, they both still stood there, awkwardly staring at each other. Too many seconds passed before Delilah broke the eye contact and quickly latched onto the doorknob. She clumsily twisted it and then pushed the door open, walking into the room. Jake wasn't sure why he did it, but when she attempted to close the door, he held it open, looking at her through the small opening. "Delilah, do you?" Her breath hitched, and he wasn't sure if he was hearing her heartbeat or his. "Do you have anything else to say?" "No, I just..." He opened the door wider, walking into the doorway, right in front of her. His hand reached around the back of her head, holding her steady as his lips pressed against her forehead. "Good night, Delilah." And then he stepped away. They were together now, this had to be a boundary he could cross. Her little pink lips wobbled as she nodded at him. "Yeah, good night." And she quickly closed the door, breathing hard enough for him to hear against it. Jake walked away, ignoring everything inside of him that told him not to. His steps led him up the stairs to his room where he pulled on his shorts and then he walked out the front door. It was now time to have a friendly little conversation with Garth. Like an obedient child about to get scolded for the first time, Jake found Garth seated in the corner of his office. Neil was there too, seated in Jake's chair, grinning from ear to ear, totally unaware of the dense atmosphere in the room. He'd always been a stupid and clueless, but he was even more stupid than Jake initially thought he was. "Get out of my chair, get out of my office for that matter. Garth and I have something important to talk about, I'll call you when we're done." His smile faded slowly, his eyes squinting at Jake as he stood to his feet. Not even a welcome back or a job well done, not even a pat on the shoulder or on the ass, but you're telling me to get out? "Take it back, Neil, for God's sake," Jake sighed. All right, good job and welcome back, now leave." The smile that had faded reappeared, and he walked around the desk. Instead of walking through the door though, he threw an arm over Jake's shoulder. "Now that's more like it. What happened here? Ever since I came back, it's been a bit gloomy. Beatrice has been in a bad mood and Garth won't tell me what happened. If that's what you guys are going to talk about, why can't I hear?" "One mean I'm sorry," Garth interrupted. "I did what I thought was right. Beatrice is our acting Luna, she's been with us for years, I couldn't betray her for a new girl, one that had no respect for our pack, nor any loyalty tied to it. I was ordered to kill her, but I didn't. I didn't want to betray Beatrice, and I didn't want to betray you either. So I did the only logical thing I could. I diminished any hope she had of coming back by telling her you were the one who sent me after her. That way, Beatrice would think she's dead and things would go back to how they were. And who exactly gave you the right to make such a decision? When did you become the alpha here? Who helped you up on such a high horse? I know I should have consulted you first, but if I did, you'd hurt Beatrice, probably even kill her. Jake shrugged Neil's arm off of him, and walked around the table to take a seat behind his desk. The anger he felt was like an impenetrable ball around him, but instead of letting it burst out of control, he took in deep and long breaths to calm himself down. Come here, Garth. Garth got out of the chair and warily walked forward until he stood in front of Jake. Jake gestured towards the floor in front of him. Am I not the one who should be looking down at you? Garth's jaws clenched as he bent down on one knee in front of Jake, hanging onto the desk for support. He knew what Jake was doing. He was showing him who was in control, whose orders should really be carried out. And though his pride was depleting, he had to show his alpha the respect he undeniably deserves. Yes. Jake reached for the pen on his desk, looking at it as if it were far more interesting than Garth's face. I might have lost my place as the Alpha King. He twirled it and then before Garth could even see the attack coming, he slammed it into his hand. But my place here still remains as Alpha. You don't listen or try to protect Beatrice unless I tell you to do so. She's nothing to me now, thus why I expect it to be the same for you. The pen penetrated his skin in such a way that it would hurt more if he didn't cry out. The groan that left his lips was drawled out and loud, even though he tried his best to stifle it. Understood. And we agree that this won't ever happen again, right? Why yes. His words were low and strained. It won't happen again, I swear on my life. Jake dug the pen out, and he gasped, immediately withdrawing it from the desk despite the awful sting. Good. Jake patted his head, a gesture that made him feel even more small. Now that we're on the same page, stand up. Neil's back, let's at least celebrate his return after he summarizes what took place on the mission. Neil looked between them from where he stood against the door, mouth slightly agape. So this was what happened? What new girl are we talking about? What woman could have you even punishing Garth? I deserved it, Garth confirmed. That wasn't a punishment, it was a warning. Use this as an example not to mess with her either. Jake placed the pen down, his whole demeanor austere. The report. Who is she? Where is she from? I stuck the pen in Garth's hand. Do you want me to stuff it in your throat? Hurry up with the report. I'll tell you later because I'll need your help anyway. Neil laughed. All right, as long as you'll eventually tell me. He eased off the door, walking closer to the desk. It went well, but I think something's fishy. The rogue alpha I killed didn't seem strong enough to lead such a big pack of rogues. Rogues have never been sensible, but I believe these ones are. The pack was big, one of the biggest I'd ever seen. We lost 2 warriors and only one was severely injured. If we hadn't set the woods on fire, I don't believe we'd have been able to take them down. They were also using the ferals as weapons, they had a whole bunch of them locked up like rabid dogs. So you're saying the real Alpha could still be alive and loose somewhere out there? Yes, and if he is, I don't believe we've taken down his whole pack. He's likely to have another base where an even bigger pack is. The fool I killed, I'm sure he was a decoy. Jake tapped his finger against the desk. This is a hassle. Why did he assign our pack to this mission? If I'd won the battle, I would have just handed it right back to him. Garth, what is your intake? I'm not sure, I wasn't there. But if the rogue Alpha really is out there, then we have to find him and fast. The bigger the pack gets, the more dangerous it is. Probably send some warriors to scout the areas close to where their destroyed base is. Do that, you're in charge of the warriors. Don't send out our best, but please do send some men who are capable. Garth nodded. Jake looked towards Neil. Strengthen the border patrols. I want more men guarding the borders, and I want you out there with them. Those annoying take revenge. I heard there was no rest for the wicked, but even so right after my return. Yes, right after you return. However, if you are of help to me tonight, then I'll send Ace or Beatrice out there for 2 nights in your stead. And what exactly do you want my help with? Let me order the Omegas to bring some wine first. Pack business was done, now it was time for his business. Only minutes later, 2 Omegas filed in, one carrying the glasses and the other carrying 3 bottles of wine. They placed each item on the desk and then bowed their heads and walked back out. Neil drew for his chair first, and then Garth did the same. They sat on either sides of his desk, each picking up their bottle and their glass. So Jake, who's this girl I hear you making a fuss about? Jake paused, this was embarrassing, after acting like love was, he stepped right into it, and he knew Neil would make a big deal out of it. She's my mate, wait, the same mate you pledged to kill if you find. He chuckled, pulling the stopper out of the bottle that was already screwed halfway out. This is interesting. What do you want my help with? Well, sort of she hates me. I treated her like crap at first because I thought I'd kill her, but I don't want her dead anymore, instead, I want her to stop hating me. And how do I come in? Jake pinched the bridge of his nose. Was he seriously just trying to get Jake to say what he was too embarrassed to? I want her to like me for Goddess's sake. She finally gave me a chance, and I don't want it. Girls always like you, what do you do? Nothing. He poured the wine in his cup, a prideful smile appearing on his lips. My presence is just so sophisticating that women have no choice but to throw themselves at me. Jake glared at him. I'm serious, you baboon, help me or else you start patrol tonight. Well, all right. I will help. Delilah rolled over in the big bed she laid in. She couldn't sleep, he was long gone, and yet, she still was afraid to close her eyes for some reason. She couldn't understand herself, mostly her emotions and her heart. The organ kept beating out of control, not whenever she was scared, but whenever he drew near. Her emotions were also confusing, she wasn't supposed to feel this way, not towards him. Butterflies shouldn't swarm her stomach, her heart shouldn't flutter. This was how she used to feel when she looked at or thought of Gio. But now the thought of him made her stomach ache, while the thought of Jake, or rather the fact that he ran to her feet as soon as he thought she was in danger, it moved her. For once in her life, she'd felt really special. She didn't feel like the puny Omega that nobody cared about, she actually felt like somebody. That's why she'd agreed to come back with him. It was a choice she hadn't made while she'd been sober, and one she wasn't sure if she'd come to regret. But what if it really worked between them? And what if it didn't? Could she really ever forget the things he did to her? Could she forget that he killed her baby? A baby that Gio didn't want, but her baby nonetheless. Pulling the pillow beside her into her arms, she sighed. She wasn't sure where things would go from here, or how it would turn out. If only Mom was here to give her some advice, to help her through these conflicting emotions. But sadly, her mother didn't have a grave or a tree to tarry. Her soul left this world in agony, and Delilah had absolutely no way of reaching out to her. Tears filled her eyes as they aimlessly glanced around the dark room. Was this how Jake felt when he lost his mother? This excruciating pain, these everlasting and sad memories, was this how he felt? It must have hurt more since his mother was innocent, since she killed herself, and he must have been too young to withstand the pain. An innocent child became a monster because of a cruel father. She wondered what kind of person he'd become if his mother hadn't met his father that night. But then again, would he have even been born? Maybe it would have been different if his father never met his fated mate. That way, Delilah wouldn't have had to deal with such a broken man, or maybe Delilah's thoughts silenced at the sound of the front door opening. Jake's scent flooded in, liquor and the subtle scent of lychees, but somehow the bitterness had grown stronger than the sweetness, as though he'd been drinking. The door closed, and then she could hear his footsteps. They didn't head towards the stairs, instead they continued down the hall, straight to her room door. Delilah stiffened when the knob twisted, her heartbeat skyrocketing as she quickly clamped her eyes shut. The door creaked open, slowly, as if he was afraid to wake her up, and it closed just the same. He walked in. She couldn't see, but she heard it when he stopped right in front of the bed. It was then she started to regret her decision to feign sleep. What did he come here for? What was he going to do to he? I wonder if it'll work out. I don't want to let you go, but if it doesn't work out, and you choose to go, I'll have to let you. Her body tensed even more when she felt his hand touch her face, latching onto the visible side of her cheek. I try my best, I will make it work. I'm already changing, I'll be who you want me to be, and one day, I'm sure I'll get you to love me as much as I love you. Delilah's hand gripped into the sheets as her heart fluttered again, beating into madness against her chest. She tried her best not move, but her eyes squeezed even tighter when his finger ran across them. What in heaven's name was he doing? His digit ran along the narrowness of her nose and then around the full extent of her face. I'll show you how determined I am tomorrow. And then he pulled his hand back, quietly retreating through the door. Delilah finally opened her eyes. What could she have possibly done to make him so docile and calm? Why was he so set on being better because of her? He'd hated her so much before, how could he possibly love her this much now? His change of heart was perturbing, she just couldn't wrap her head around it. Though, she was having a change of heart too, but it was only her heart that was swayed, by both the mate bond and his actions. Her mind was still conscious of what he was capable of whom he could be. She was sure that side of him wasn't dead, and she still wasn't sure if she'd ever forget what it did to her. He wanted her to love him, but she wasn't sure if she could. What a world they both lived in. They were mated, but were they really fated? And how would she ever be able to determine if they were? Jake leant against the door jamb that led to the kitchen, watching as the Omegas filled the dining table with breakfast. Everything had to be perfect. According to Neil, he had to set the atmosphere. Flowers were something women loved, so he told them to bring a few roses in a vase and just put them wherever they looked best on the table. You see, last night, he was given the premium advice as Neil called it in steps. Step 1 was of course to dress presentably, step 2 was to set the atmosphere. He'd finished both of those steps, though. It took him more than an hour to decide on the simple pair of jeans pants and the brown shirt he wore. His hair was the same as always, but he'd used up a tremendous amount of time trying and failing to style it in the bathroom. He'd washed his face twice and even moisturized it. He was going all out today. He was getting agonizingly impatient. He'd even told the Omegas to bring a bit of everything they cooked, thus why a table for 2 looked like a table for 6. Was he doing too much? No, this was absolutely nothing compared to what he had planned later for dinner. He had to impress her somehow. This was possibly one of the ways to do it. Clearing his throat, he gestured towards the head Omega. Are you guys done? Yes, Alpha. You may go. She bowed her head, ushering the other Omegas out. However, before she could leave, Jake stopped her. 1 second. She turned to look at him. Alpha. The table looks fine, doesn't it? Well, it does, yes, it looks nice. She seemed nervous, but he could bet she wasn't as nervous as him. And what about me? How do I look? Her cheeks flushed, the middle-aged woman now seeming like a teenager about to do a love confession. You look. Alpha, you look nice. You look the same as always. What? She jumped back, her head immediately dropping. I'm sorry. If I offended you in any way, I'm sorry. Jake pinched the bridge of his nose, fanning her off. It's fine, just go. She rushed out of the room and Jake pulled out one of the chairs from beneath the table, flopping down onto it with a heavy sigh. He looked the same as always. Other times he didn't give a flying, sitting or standing about his appearance, but the day he finally took the time out to look better, he looked the same. For such disrespect, he'd have killed that Omega, especially since she ruined his mood. How would he be able to complete step 3 now? The step to look and act confident. Should he change? No, if he went back into that closet, he wouldn't stop trying on clothes until tomorrow. Maybe the clothes didn't matter, that and the fact that he'd done wonders to his face, all that mattered was that he tried, right, even he knew he was wrong. How would he look different when he looked the same? Did that even make any sense? He needed to go change. Getting up, he walked out of the dining room, marching towards the stairs. As soon as he climbed the first one, his body came to a sudden stop when Delilah's door opened. He peeked over the staircase, watching as she stepped outside, rubbing her eyes while yawning cutely. Goddess knew what she was doing when she was making Delilah, or was Delilah the real goddess here? Her eyes glanced around her surroundings until they found him, and his eyes averted immediately. Last night, he'd gone to see her while she slept. He knew he wouldn't be able to sleep in peace if he didn't get the chance to behold such vast beauty. "Good morning, morning," she responded, voice as low as a whisper and as sweet as honey, that voice that could sway any man, even the devil. All of a sudden, he forgot just why he was climbing the stairs. Stepping down, he straightened himself and directed his eyes back at her. He had to seem confident, even if he wasn't. "Breakfast is already on the table, you might want to come eat before it gets too cold." Okay, her cheeks were beautifully flushed and her hair that had been loose last night was now tied in a messy bun. "Just let me brush my teeth real quick." Jake nodded. "Yeah, I'll wait for you at the table." He walked away first, knowing he'd showcase his nervousness if he stayed any longer. He walked into the dining room, jotting back down in his chair and resting his hand against the left side of his chest. His heart was beating so fast. Was he okay? He was sure he wasn't. About 5 minutes later, Delilah walked into the dining room, quickening the pace of his heart that had calmed down during the wait again. He gestured to the chair in front of him, and she sat on it, eyes circling the table in shock. "Why's there so much? Will Garth and Beatrice come over?" She acknowledged just how much food there was and not the roses in the very center of it all. Did she perhaps hate flowers? Jake wanted to kill himself. "No, well, I just thought it'd be nice to have a lot of food for some reason. I didn't get to eat last night either." "Why not? You sent me food, but didn't eat." "I was a little busy. My beta came back from his mission. He was filling me in on everything that happened. The problem I sent him to take care of seemed to have turned into a bigger problem." "Oh," was her response. "I'm sorry to hear." "No, it's fine, I'll take care of it somehow." He gestured towards the food on the table. "Let's eat." He waited for her to grab her plate and share whatever she wanted in it before doing the same. It was quiet while he did so, and quiet while they ate, which probably meant it was time for step 4. Step 4, give her the eyes, those eyes that will make her fall for you, the beautiful eyes. One of the most important steps, as Neil said, it goes along with step 2, setting the atmosphere. He'd planned to save this move for dinner, but if it was so important, the sooner, the better, right? He'd practiced before walking out of his room this morning, his beautiful eyes were close to perfection now. Leaning forward in his chair, he rested his elbow against the table and his fist beneath his chin and just looked at her. She was biting at the sausage on her fork, but stopped when she noticed his gaze. She gave him a weird look, as though she was heavily confused. "What are you? Is there something in your eyes? You keep blinking, are you okay?" Jake shook his head, rubbing his eyes in embarrassment as he leaned back in his chair. Maybe he should have practiced more and saved it for dinner. Since apparently his beautiful eyes made him seem as though he were going blind. She hurt his pride even without acknowledging it. How would he be able to manage when it was time for the main event? He wanted to truly feel like she was his, that mark that had turned into a scar on her neck, he wanted to replace it with his, to claim her wholly and irrevocable. But he has to somehow make her want that too, and it was just so hard. He wished it were easier, but he was the one who'd made it hard for his own self. So the first 4 steps didn't go exactly as he planned they would. He'd expected a romantic breakfast, but all he got was a silent one. Dinner was going to be better, he promised. Step 5 was to buy her things she liked. Women liked flowers, but what they liked even more was clothes and jewelry, and he was going out to get her just that. In the city on the neutral lands, he could find plenty of those stuffs and more. Gripping onto the staircase, he walked his way downstairs, meeting Delilah who stood at the bottom. He licked his lips, still feeling embarrassed about what happened a couple minutes ago in the dining room. Beautiful eyes? Yeah, right, he'd never do it again. I'm going out for a while, I probably won't be back till sundown. Okay. You can, however, go wherever you want while I'm gone. I don't want you cooped up here with nothing to do. I also don't want you to feel like I lied when I told you that you still have your freedom, but please, don't cross the borders. It might be daytime, but it can get dangerous. If you need anything, you can find Garth or Neil in my office, tell them. Delilah nodded. Neil. Oh, he's my beta, the one I told you about at breakfast. Oh. Yeah, so I guess I'll see you later. Yeah, later. Jake walked past her, pocketing his hands that wanted to reach for her. Her gaze seemed different, something about it changed, but he couldn't tell what. Probably it was the newfound innocence that pulled him in. The bold brown in them didn't seem so fierce again, it was as if she didn't see him as an enemy anymore. He opened the front door, the bright light from the sun bombarding his eyes so intensely he had to close them for a few seconds. If that was the case, then he was happy, that was what he wanted, but he wanted her to also think of him as something more, someone necessary in her life, a rock, a shoulder to lean on. He wanted her to want or rather need him. He stepped out onto the veranda, and then turned to look at her as the door started to slowly close on its own accord. She waved at him, right before it closed completely, and somehow the act lightened his heart. He was sure of it, tonight was the night he'd convince her. He needed to stop acting, this needed to be taken more seriously. There was no reason for him to be nervous around her, she agreed to give him this chance and he was stupidly working towards destroying it. He'd never been timid before, not even around his father who he'd been afraid of, so why did he have to feel so small in her presence? Where did his words go whenever she looked at him? Why did he sometimes even stutter? It needed to stop. He was going to do better tonight, he'd already promised. Stepping down from the veranda, he walked down the path towards the pack borders, while opening the mind link between him, Garth and Neil. I'm leaving, please do keep an eye on my mate. I don't even know how she looks, what? Neil, she's the prettiest woman here, you'll know you're looking at her when you see a goddess. Neil laughed. Never thought I'd have to listen to you being lovesick, I'll have to go see if she's goddess worthy with my own eyes though. Well, she is pretty, her hair is red too. Garth intervened, his words making a proud smile play on Jake's lips. Even you too, Garth? No, I'm just speaking based off what I see and what or you're probably just trying to butter Jake up after what you did the last time. Do you think I wouldn't know? That's not what argue and fight without me being in the middle of it. Just do what I told you guys to, and I'll need your help when I get back as well. But Jake cut the link before Neil could begin his protest. He was a perfect beta, but everybody had flaws. His was his big mouth that complained whenever he was assigned a task. Sighing, Jake continued walking until he made it to the white, whatever model car parked in the roadway between the trees. John was in the driver's seat, the only pack member Jake trusted to drive him, since he couldn't drive himself. He opened the door to the back seat, shuffled his way inside, and then closed it. There were cars here, but they weren't used on a regular basis. It was more efficient and stamina building to travel in wolf form. But right now, he was going to buy a lot of things, and he needed something to carry them back in. The journey was also long, he couldn't walk, and he wouldn't be able to carry much in his wolf form, thus why this was his alternative. Leaning against the door, he peered through the window as the car engine started up, all the while wondering if she'd like the things he was going to get. She probably would, after all, she only had a knapsack of clothes, getting her more would surely make her happy. He didn't for 1 second think any of this would be easy, but when he pulled up in the city, he did not know what to buy. There were clothes everywhere and even the ugly ones looked good on her when he pictured it. He ended up getting more than what he went there for, bags upon bags until the car trunk was full. But that wasn't what's hard. Setting up a warm and extravagant dinner under the moonlight while Neil laughed and made fun of him had been the hardest thing to deal with. They'd been on the meeting grounds, a place surrounded by high wooden fencing, but open to the night sky. He'd asked Neil and Garth to bring a small table for two along with chairs, and he'd situated them on the podium in the center of the meeting grounds. He also tried making the simple decorations by himself along with the two idiots he'd brought along with him, but it all turned out so that he had to bother the head Omega again. Now though, everything was set and as the night sky reigned above, he stood by the door to the cabin with all the bags in his hand. He strained to open the door, not because the bags were heavy, but simply because they were too much. Nevertheless, the door creaked open, and he walked inside, following her scent back towards her room. He dropped the bags in his right hand to knock, picking them back up when she opened the door. Before she could say a word, he walked in, placing everything on the floor at the feet of the bedside table. He cleared his throat like he did every other time he was nervous and then turned to face her. They are, he paused for a second, shoving his hands in his pocket and jutting out his chest in order to look cool and like a fool. He gestured towards the bags with his chin, her eyes confused as she stared back at him. Those are yours. Since I went out, I thought I'd buy you some stuff. You don't have much here anyway. She glanced down at the bag and then fixated her eyes back on him. Thanks, and how was it here by yourself? Did you at least go for a walk? No, I stayed here. I bet it was boring. How about I take you on a walk now? That would be, she twisted her lips from left to right as if thinking of what to say. That would be nice. Then get dressed. I'd really like to see you in whatever you think is the prettiest dress I bought. She looked towards the bags again, nodding. All right, I'll take a shower first. Yeah, do that and meet me outside on the veranda. He walked out of her room after that, taking a deep breath as soon as he made it to the stairs. That was good, he did good. Now it was time for him to take a quick shower too and get changed. Rushing up the stairs, he did just that. He showered and changed into black trousers and a black button-up shirt that wasn't buttoned all the way up. Neil told him to leave at least 3 buttons open to enhance seduction. In order for her to want him, he had to make her want him. Didn't make much sense, but whatever. Jake walked down the stairs, but instead of heading towards her room, he headed out onto the veranda, giving her the time and the space she probably wanted. A couple minutes later, the knob on the front door finally twisted, and the door creaked open. She stepped out onto the veranda, hands entwined in front of her. They were all pretty, so I just closed my eyes and picked anything. Jake could feel the blood rushing to his cheeks, his lips fumbling as he tried to find a word to describe her. However, nothing came to mind. No word could ever describe just how magnificent she looked in that pink dress he bought her. It hadn't looked so pretty when he was picking it up, but now since she had it on, it was the prettiest dress he'd ever seen. It looked even better than how he'd imagined it, especially since she'd let her hair down. Goddess, if he screwed up this dinner, then it was best he offed himself. You look so pretty, I don't even know what to say. She smiled, a small twitch on the left side of her lips. Thank you, should we go? Jake nodded. Just let me. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a hair clip, and then he walked towards her, sliding one side of her hair back and then inserting it. It belonged to my mother, I thought it'd be pretty if you wore it. Why you re-giving it to me? Isn't this just as precious as that diary? It is, but you're precious to me too. No, but she felt for the clip in her hair, running her fingers over it. I guess I'll just wear it until we get back. Jake tentatively reached for her hand, grabbing it and holding it in this, let's go. She nodded with those cheeks that were flushed, her hand surprisingly closing around his too. Okay, let's go. Jake led the way, but only a couple of steps away from the house and a clap of lightning sang loudly from the sky. He looked up, just in time for a raindrop to land against his forehead, and then the rain started pouring heavily after that. Into the rainy waters that fell against the ground he stood on, his heart sank, bleeding out until it felt as though it was destroyed. The rain? Why was the rain falling? Why did it have to fall now? Why was this? Delilah tugged at his hand, trying to pull him back towards the house. We'll get wet, come on. She dragged him back because it felt as though he couldn't move by himself. By the time they made it back to the veranda, his clothes and hair were soaked, hers was too. She tried to pull him further inside, but he yanked his hand out of hers and sat down on the veranda steps, not looking at her but at the rain that had destroyed all his plans. Was the goddess against this too? Because why was the rain falling when there was no sign of it since this morning? Was their relationship really doomed? Jake looked towards Delilah when she sat down beside him. What's wrong? If it's about the walk, we can just go tomorrow. No, I'm always up when it comes to you. What do you mean? Was the goddess against this too? Because why was the rain falling when there was no sign of it since this morning? Was their relationship really doomed? Jake looked towards Delilah when she sat down beside him. What's wrong? If it's about the walk, we can just go tomorrow. No, I'm always up when it comes to you. What do you mean? He sighed, aggressively running his hand down his face. His frustrations were turning into anger, anger directed at himself. "It's nothing, just go inside and change, your clothes are soaked." "But yours are too, Delilah, why won't you tell me?" Her eyes averted, staring at her feet in the slippers that were wet and dirty, and for some reason, she seemed down too, as though her mood has completely changed. "Have you finally realized that you hate me too? That I ruined your life like I ruined theirs? You and Beatrice were fine before I came here, and I messed it up like I did everything else. Are you finally realizing that I'm really nothing but bad luck and that I deserved to die out there?" "What are you talking about?" "No, what are you talking about? What's up?" Jake bit his lips. He was embarrassed to say it, but in order to clear up her misunderstandings, he had to. It's nothing of that sort. It's just that I keep messing up. I've been trying to do at least one thing right since breakfast this morning, but it's all just, I ruined everything. I mean, you didn't even get to see what I prepared for dinner, and you haven't noticed anything I've done before." "What? Is this about the roses in the vase on the table? They weren't there before, and that you also dressed up both this morning and now. And the beautiful eyes, you literally thought I was going blind." She turned to face him again, squinting her eyes in innocent confusion. "What beautiful eyes? What are you talking about?" "This." Jake tilted his head down a bit, and stared at her through his lashes with slightly intimidating eyes, blinking way more times than he usually does. "That's not." Delilah pursed her lips, trying to hold back the laugh that threatened to break through, but when he tilted his head to the side, looking like an evil peacock, she just had to laugh. The laugh burst through her lips in puffs of air, and Jake looked at her, awfully confused as to why she was laughing. "What? What's funny? So there really wasn't anything in your eyes this morning?" "See?" Jake sucked in a breath. "I ruin everything." Delilah's laugh lasted a few seconds more before it died out. It sucked that she was laughing at him, but this was the very first time he'd seen her laugh, and after seeing it, he wished she'd laugh more, at him, at just anything. "I don't know what beautiful eyes are, but it might not be that." "What does it even mean?" Jake shrugged. "I don't know. According to Neil it was supposed to make me more attractive. I guess it didn't do the trick." "But I don't think you need it anyway." Delilah looked up at the night sky, stretching her hand out to catch the rain. It was stupid, but she wanted to cheer him up, to probably show him that his efforts didn't go to waste. After listening to his determined speech last night, she'd be heartless to just ignore the fact that he was trying to do something he'd never done. "You said you didn't get to show me what you prepared. How about you just show me now?" "But it's raining, and we're already soaked." "But still, I don't want." Delilah poured the water that she'd caught in her hand out and stood to her feet, stretching said hand towards him. "Let's just go, the rain won't harm us. Quinn and I used to dance outside every time it rained when we were kids." The memories of those moments were sad, and yet, they were full of joy. She missed her sister, but because of a man, she'd ruined the bond they used to have. Now for that reason, her mother was dead, her father had no recollection of her, and Quinn hated her very being. What a sad life to live, nobody really loved her anymore. She glanced back when Jake grabbed her hand, holding on tight as he too stood to his feet. "Okay, I guess we can go then." Except for him, nobody loved her anymore except for him. He stepped off into the rain, taking her along with him, steps urgent, and yet, they didn't break out into a run. Delilah's hand closed around his, her heart felt a little lighter at the fact that at least one person cared, even if she was supposed to hate him. If she let go of his hand, where would she go? Who would she turn to? She'd be left out in the dark again, searching for hope that she wouldn't be able to find, she'd just be a shell of herself. For everything inside of her would be dead. That night when he found her, she'd made up her mind to die, she was going to take her chance at death again, since the chances she had at life were seemingly done. But he came just minutes before she built the courage, and so to make it easier, she'd begged him to kill her. However, instead of doing that, he gave her the will to live a little longer, showed her that she didn't have to be alone if he was around. And he gave her the choice to accept that and to not accept it. He really changed, hasn't he? This didn't seem like the person who'd locked her up and belittled her to absolutely nothing. He didn't seem like the man who'd force her to drink something that would harm her baby. He has changed. He'd done what she waited too long to do. He was a better person than she could ever be. Everybody deserved a second chance. She was dying to have one herself. So she knew how it felt to want forgiveness, knowing you'll probably never be forgiven. She wanted her mother to forgive her, but Catherine was already dead. She wanted her father to forgive her, but he didn't even remember what she did. And she wanted Quinn to forgive, but to Quinn she was just like her mother, dead. The pain she felt because of that was pain she didn't believe anyone deserved. Not even him. Gripping his hand tighter, she took the lead, running instead of walking and dragging him along with her. Nobody walks in the rain, Jake. He stopped, forcing her to stop too. You'll fall, it's slippery. I won't loosen up a little. Then be careful, please. I know the way, so I'll run in front. He did just that, keeping his steps at a pace she could keep up with. It was true, the grass was slippery and the mud along the clear paths without it kept sticking to her slippers, making them heavy. Her dress too felt heavy as the rain completely drenched it, but the mate bond as well as the sparks rushing from him to her made her feet feel light. Her eyes focused on him instead of the path ahead, watching as he looked back to check on her more times than she could count. He really cared, didn't he? She couldn't even lie to herself that he was faking it when he made it so obvious. The nervous glances. The blush that'd show up on his cheeks. The newfound burst of life that lived in those that were once dead. It was evident. He did want her. More than anyone ever had. Maybe he really did deserve a second chance, maybe she could trust him. The goddess didn't make mistakes, they must have been bonded for a reason, no matter how awful their first meeting had been. Who was she to go against the goddess' plan? If this isn't meant to be, then in the long run, there will be signs. She'd only give him this chance. If he messed up, then there won't be a third or a fourth. He'd only get a second chance. Delilah's eyes finally drifted from Jake's back when he stopped running, and instead looked off at apparently what he'd planned for tonight. On the low grass in front of them, red rose petals created a path that was guided by candles, white candles that the rain had violated. Rows of string lights ran across the open space, creating sufficient light for anyone to clearly see the small table up ahead. It was where the petals and the candles led to, a table clothed by white tablecloth. The two chairs that sat beneath it were taken by two men, and a large, cantilever umbrella hovered over it, sheltering both them and the table from the rain. Delilah looked closer, realizing that one of them was Garth and the other was unfamiliar. She'd never seen him here before. Perhaps he was Neil? The one Jake was talking about. She glanced away from them and then at Jake, who was already staring at her. He nervously scratched his head. So this is it. Everything is messy. It looked better an hour ago. I'm sorry. No, she smiled at him, a small smile that was barely even noticeable. It's fine, I wasn't expecting anything like this from you. I mean, nobody has ever done something like this for me before, thank you. It's ruined though. It's not, it's actually beautiful. Yet. She nodded, combing her wet hair back and licking the rainwater from against her lips. Yet. Then I guess it was worth it. I've never done anything like this in my life, so I wasn't sure if you'd like it. I also considered that you hated roses, but then, Neil convinced me to still use the petals as decoration. He took the first step inside, still hanging onto her hand as he did so. Oh, I forgot, nobody walks in the rain, and then he began running, his muddy shoes tainting the petals he'd taken his time to spread. Delilah ran to keep up with his pace, but her heart was melting, her whole body was. The solid wall of ice she'd covered herself in was melting away, not because of the rain that dripped heavily against the top of her head, but because of him. The fact that he'd thought this through enough to do something beyond what he'd normally do was astounding. Based on the type of person he was, she thought it'd be bland, nothing that'd seemed the least bit romantic. But he'd exceeded her expectations, and then have the nerve to tell her that something like this was ruined? This was prettier and more thoughtful than those silly little birthday parties they'd held for her back at home. There, at the Silver Moon Pack, not even her 18th birthday was a big deal, only Quinn's was. You see, she wasn't of high ranking, so nobody but her family really cared about her birthdays. They were all held in her room with a happy birthday balloon, a cake, and gifts from her family. Quinn's 10th, 15th and 18th birthday were held publicly on the meeting grounds, and that was probably when Delilah started to become jealous, and that jealousy grew even bigger when Quinn not only got a marvelous birthday party, but she even got to have Geo as a birthday gift. It tormented her for nights, but now she felt different about everything. She didn't feel jealous anymore, because someone had finally gone the extra mile for her. Now she finally got to feel how Quinn did, special. Jake led her up the steps, his feet slowing to a stop when they made it atop of the podium, right in front of the table in the rain. Garth and the unfamiliar guy immediately stood up, leaving the chairs vacant. I thought you guys were gone, and where did you get this? The umbrella? Garth asked and Jake nodded. The head Omega brought it back just before the rain hit. She said something about her being sorry and that she now understood why you got angry at her. She also said that the umbrella was used on picnic dates she had with her mate, as if anybody gives a talk. Ah, I should thank her tomorrow then. That's surprising, Neil interjected. I guess you were being serious all along. A goddess indeed. We made a bet, I was sure you were going to chicken out, you've always been a coward when it came to opening up to other people, even with Beatrice. But I lost the bet, because it seems you're not so scared anymore. You've changed, Jake, and now because of that, I'll have to give Garth more than half of the reward I got from the mission I risked my life for. That isn't so fair, is it? Fair or not, it's not my fault. Is that why you guys were here? Sitting out in the cold just to see if I'll come or not? If so, leave already. We're leaving. Just 1 second. Neil stepped towards Delilah, stretching out a hand, which Delilah hesitantly took. She assessed his face, from the slightly damped auburn hair on his head to every little feature on his face. His brown eyes reminded her of her father's for some reason, and his button nose went well with his chiseled jaws and his plump, pink lips. He was handsome, all 3 men beside her were. Nice to meet you, I hope you'll be a good Luna to this pack, but mostly to him. And then he let go of her, throwing an arm over Garth's shoulder. Let's go now. Delilah watched as they went, taking a seat on one of the chairs as soon as she deemed them far enough. Was that Neil? Jake nodded, him too sitting down beneath the shadow of the umbrella. Yeah, don't mind him, he has always been a troublemaker. No, he's fine. So are you ready to go back now? I'd planned dinner, but there's nobody to actually serve us in the rain. It's getting pretty cold too, I know omegas are more prone to sickness. No, Delilah hugged around herself, it was true. She'd caught flu and sometimes fever on multiple occasions from playing in the rain with Quinn, and right now, it was undeniably cold, but she wasn't ready to leave yet. All of this would be gone tomorrow, she wanted to feel special for at least a couple more minutes. I don't want to, I'm not ready. You're trembling, Delilah. I'm not. Why are you always so stubborn? I know you're cold, Delilah. She turned away from him, looking at the petals on the ground instead, and Jake sighed. Then at least come sit with me, come here, it might be just a tad bit warmer. Delilah squinted towards him when he tapped his thighs. Was he telling her to sit there? Her cheeks flared, her little hands balling in her lap as she held her head down. I don't, she paused, knowing if she said it, then it would be a lie. If she was going to give him a second chance, then it made no sense to push him away. So she stood up, tentatively walking over to where he sat. Okay. She turned her back towards him, slowly sitting down against the very edge of his lap, and immediately after, his arms caged her, pulling her flat against his chest. He inhaled against her shoulder, sucking up her scent in a very deep breath. Why don't you want to leave? I told you nobody has ever done this for me. I can do it another time, anytime you want me to. Yeah, but it'll feel different. It won't be surprising, because then, I'd be the one who asked you to do it. Then you won't have to ask me. Delilah didn't respond. She didn't know what to say, but she could feel herself relaxing in his arms, melting away even more. His skin was cold too, but wherever his arms hovered, she could feel a dwelling warmth triggered by the sparks that flew from his touch beneath her skin. She could barely believe she'd once been afraid of this person, because now, she was close enough, and yet she wanted to get even closer. Shuffling back against him, she laid her head back on his chest, listening to the rain beating against the floor and her heart beating against its cage. No, it wasn't just hers, she could hear his too, pumping out of control, pumping fast and unsteadily. He hugged her tighter. "I want to kiss you so bad." His voice was low and deep, lighting a fire within her, one that the rain water splashing against her feet couldn't extinguish. "You don't," she licked her lips, making sure that they weren't dry. "You don't have to ask any more." "No, I want you to want me to, do you?" Delilah clasped her hands, anxious and nervous. Did she want him to? Those plump, red lips, did she want them on hers? "I don't know." Jake's arms fell from around her, depriving her of the comfort she'd felt before. "Turn around, face me." She was reluctant, but she did so slowly. His hand reached for her cheek when she settled down on his thighs again. "You can say no, I just want you to tell me the truth." Delilah's eyes glanced down towards his lips, remembering how soft and moist they were, and how perfectly they'd fitted against hers, how fruity and sweet they'd tasted. She knew it, didn't she? She knew she wanted him to kiss her, even fiercer than he did the last time. "Why yes," she whispered out. "What?" Jake asked her, his eyes following hers and his hand on her cheek, holding her face in his direction when she tried to look away. "What did you say?" "Yes," she repeated. "I want you to." Jake didn't respond, he instantly claimed her lips instead, doing as she wished, kissing her fierce and deep. The sparks she felt multiplied, and the fire within her spread, blazing higher and higher by the second. She gripped into his shoulders, sliding closer as she kissed back. His tongue slithered into her mouth, skillfully and passionately searching the entirety of it. When he pulled away, she was breathless and heated, panting hard while staring at him. "This strong and immense scent coming from you is one I've never had the honor of smelling, and that's because I never had the decency to actually get you aroused. The fact that you are now spikes my pride, at least give me the honor of taking care of you tonight. I won't touch you without your consent. Never again. It's only if you want me to." Delilah hid her face against him in embarrassment. What was wrong with her? Why was she wet? The kiss was intense, but this was just embarrassing. I am fine." "Are you sure?" She nodded. "Let's head back, then. We can't stay like this any longer, it's becoming awfully torturous." "What do you?" She was going to ask what he meant, but stopped when she realized just what he was talking about. His scent was becoming dense too, and the stronger it got, the higher the heat within her became. She wanted him to kiss her again, she was dying for him to do it. His arms had felt so secure around her, his touch did not scare her anymore. All the harm it had once caused her now settled at the back of her, and desire flooded to the forefront. She wanted him to tightly wrap his arms around her again, she wanted him to. This was getting dangerous, she needed to get away from him, but she couldn't find the strength. Mate bond had grown bigger than she now, overcoming her reluctance and enhancing her desires. It was stupid, but she wanted him to do more than just hold her. This man whom she'd cripplingly hated, she wanted him to touch her, in the most intimate way possible. She could picture those lips against her skin, chose bands against her body, and it was driving her crazy. "Delilah. I'm not okay." She raised her head to look at him, giving up, giving in. Take care of me. I'm not okay. She raised her head to look at him, giving up, giving in. Take care of me. Her breathless words surprised him, the desperation in them was the same desperation he felt, a need that only involved her. Her scent was mesmerizing, like a hypnotic spell, it compelled him, drowning him in the most graceful way possible. He wanted her so bad. Say that again, I want to make sure I heard that right. I don't want to do anything that will affect the progress of our relationship, so please say it again. She bit her bottom lip, the motion flipping the switch in his head, loosening a lot of screws. I said that, you heard me, I know you did. I never said I didn't, I want to make sure you're aware of your words too and not just caught up in a moment you'll regret. I know what I said. Then why can't you say it again? That's swell, that's. She removed her hands from his shoulders and then slid his hand away from her cheek. Let's just go. She attempted to get off him, but he grabbed her waist, pulling her back down. Delilah, just. I'm desperate here, take care of me, that's what I said. And you won't regret it. And no, but even if I do, I won't blame you. Okay, Jake kept his eyes on her as his hands slowly drifted down her hips into the hem of the dress that rested against her thighs. A shiver racked through her body as he pushed it higher, revealing even more of her flawless skin. She seemed nervous and yet anxious at the same time, while he was confused. He wasn't sure if she was ready for this. He knew he was. But something like this shouldn't be one-sided. He didn't want to be the only one that wanted her, he wanted her to want him too. However, his patience was getting too thin, he couldn't stop. This moment had been playing in his head for a while now. He'd dreamt of it last night, his hands roaming her skin, freely and unwaveringly. He'd dreamt of grasping her lips with his eyes drifted down to stare at them, the small, heart-shaped flesh that his lips could easily cover. He'd dreamt of engraving his mark on her neck, his eyes focused on the slenderness of her throat, specifically at the scar Giovanni had left there. He wanted to erase it, to replace it with his, but again, he knew she wasn't ready. He'd dreamt of exploring her wholly, he'd dreamt of her against his tongue, in his mouth. His eyes drifted to her chest, wishing he could see all that was beyond her dress, but the thin patience he had left along with the one string of control was what stopped him from ripping the garment. His hands made it to the apex of her thighs, and he could hear the harsh breath that left her lips. It wasn't surprising that he wished it were his name. I won't go too far, I promise. I know you're not ready yet. She didn't respond, but she didn't break the eye contact between them as his fingers slid the crotch of her wet panty aside. Her breaths exhilarated, and her lips quivered in what seemed to be anticipation. Jake glanced down between her thighs. This felt like their first time, even though it wasn't. It was far from it, he already knew, and he honestly wished he didn't. There was no excuse for what he'd done, no way to erase it or take it back, no matter how much he wanted to. He just had to live his whole life regretting it, desperately trying to make up for it. His fingers glided between her folds, feeling the wetness that immediately stained them, a wetness too thick to be because of the rain, a wetness he suddenly wanted to taste. A breathy moan left her lips when his eyes met hers again, wanting to see if the just was mutual between them. He also wanted to see every bit of emotion that made itself present on her face. He wanted to know how she looked when she felt pleasure and not pain. He wanted to familiarize himself with this side of her beauty. I never thought you'd be this wet, for me at least. I just. You don't have to explain yourself, something like this is inevitable, and yet just knowing you want me to, even just the slightest bit, makes me so hard. You feel it too, don't you? The desperation I feel, just how much and how long I've wanted this he knew led to heaven, for only heaven was pretty enough to come close to it. Tell make you feel good, I'll make you want me even more. Every day, then every hour. I'll make sure just a touch gets you excited and wet. I'll make sure you know that you belong to me, every part of you, including here. Was this craving he felt humanely possible? Could somebody really want another this much? He'd never been one to really care about a woman's pleasure, but he cared about hers. The sinful things running through his head were definitely coming from the devil. Goddess, he was hungry. Starving to get a taste of her. He just didn't know how far he could go. However, he wanted to go just a bit further, to do something he'd never ever thought of doing to another woman. The hunger he felt, he wanted to satiate it, and for the love of God, he would. She gasped, straining to look up at him. What are you doing? I'm sorry, this might be a bit too much, but please. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.